The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stretched up into darkness, its ceiling lost among the floating lights that drifted like lazy stars. Captain James Walker stood at the center of the circular platform, his black uniform crisp and straight, his posture perfect. He didn't flinch as laughter echoed from all directions. A seventh-dimensional vessel. The chief architect's voice boomed through the chamber. His crystalline body sparkled with barely contained amusement. Humans truly are entertaining creatures. Walker kept his eyes forward, hands clasped behind his back. After 20 years in Earth's Space Force, he had learned that sometimes silence was the best response. Around him, the assembled representatives of 300 advanced civilizations continued their laughter. Some were humanoid, others were clouds of light, and a few existed as patterns of pure energy. All of them thought Earth's claim was the best joke they'd heard in centuries. Perhaps a floating sphere of blue light chimed in. They discovered how to count to 7 and assumed it was a new dimension. This brought another wave of laughter. The chief architect raised his crystalline hand, and the chamber gradually fell silent. Captain Walker, we have tolerated Earth's presence in galactic affairs because your species shows potential. Your mastery of three-dimensional space is admirable, and your recent experiments with fourth-dimensional pocket space were adequate. Walker remembered those experiments. Earth's scientists had managed to create small four-dimensional storage spaces, something most species achieve thousands of years before reaching the stars. The Galactic Council had patted them on the head like proud parents, watching a baby's first steps. But this claim, the architect continued, his voice growing stern, this crosses the line from ambition into foolishness. We, the architects, have spent 50,000 years mastering six-dimensional travel. The energy requirements alone for accessing the seventh dimension would drain your entire solar system dry. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing complex equations that Walker recognized from Dr. Reed's briefings. The architect manipulated the display with practiced ease. See here. The power curve increases exponentially with each dimensional layer. Your civilization barely has enough energy to power your colonies on Mars and Europa. The idea that you've somehow solved the seventh-dimensional energy problem is impossible. Walker spoke for the first time, his voice calm and clear, like how faster-than-light travel was impossible, like how artificial gravity was impossible, like how humans would never survive first contact. The chamber grew very quiet. The chief architect's crystalline form flickered with brief patterns of red, a sign of irritation that Walker's cultural training had taught him to recognize. You dare to interrupt? A serpentine creature on Walker's left hissed. Your species is barely 1,000 years old. 912 years since our first space flight, Walker corrected politely. And yes, I dare, because while you've spent 50,000 years slowly mastering the sixth dimension, we've been thinking differently. We had to. We're young, we're impatient, and we don't know what's impossible. The chief architect leaned forward, his crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. Then prove it. Show us this seventh-dimensional vessel you claim to have built. Demonstrate its power before the council. Walker smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. With all due respect, honored architect, that's exactly what we intend to do. Earth requests a formal demonstration period of 1 solar cycle to prepare our vessel and crew. The chamber erupted in murmurs and discussions in 1,000 different languages. The chief architect raised his hand again for silence. Very well. You have 1 solar cycle, what your people call a year. Return with proof of your seventh-dimensional technology, and Earth will be granted full standing in the Galactic Council, with all the privileges that entails. His voice hardened. However, should this prove to be a false claim, Earth will be isolated from all galactic trade routes for the next 100 cycles. Do you understand these terms? Walker bowed slightly. I do. Earth accepts. As he turned to leave the chamber, the laughter started again, softer this time, more mocking. Walker maintained his steady pace, his slight smile never wavering. Let them laugh, he thought. They had no idea what was waiting in the depths of Europa, hidden under kilometers of ice. No idea what Dr. Reed and her team had discovered by accident while studying quantum consciousness. No idea that their laughter was about to stop forever. Deep beneath Europa's icy surface, Dr. Lisa Reed stood before the viewing window, watching the final tests of humanity's greatest achievement. The HSS Transcendence floated in the massive underground chamber, its hull seeming to bend reality around it. Even after 3 years of working on the project, the sight still took her breath away. Power levels stable at 12%. Marcus Stone's voice came through her earpiece. The young engineer was running diagnostics from the control room above. Dimensional field is holding steady. Lisa made a note on her tablet. The ship didn't look like any conventional spacecraft. Instead of a solid form, it appeared to fold in on itself endlessly, like a visual paradox come to life. Parts of it seemed to exist and not exist at the same time, a sight that gave most first-time viewers a headache. "Do you remember how we discovered it?" Tom Harris asked, walking up beside her. The navigator's eyes were fixed on the ship's ever-shifting form. "Sometimes I still can't believe it was an accident." Lisa nodded, remembering that day 2 years ago. Her team had been studying quantum consciousness, trying to understand how human awareness interacted with reality at the smallest levels. During one experiment, their quantum sensors had detected something impossible. Consciousness didn't just observe reality, it existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We were looking for ways to enhance human consciousness," she said, smiling at the memory. "Instead, we found out that consciousness was already operating in higher dimensions. We just hadn't noticed before." The intercom crackled to life. "Dr. Reed." Captain Walker's voice filled the chamber. "How are we looking down there?" Lisa checked her readings again. "All systems are green, Captain. The dimensional core is stable, and the consciousness interface is responding perfectly. I think we're actually ready." "About time," Marcus called from above. "The aliens gave us a year, but I'd rather not cut it too close." Lisa watched as a maintenance robot moved along the ship's hull, its sensors checking the exotic material they had developed to handle seventh-dimensional stresses. The material had been another accident, a failed attempt at quantum shielding that turned out to be perfect for their needs. Tom moved closer to the window, pressing his hand against the thick glass. "Hard to believe this all started with a bunch of meditation sensors and quantum particles. Now we've got a ship that can step outside normal spacetime entirely." "The architects are going to lose their minds," Marcus added with a laugh. "They spent 50,000 years trying to brute force their way through dimensions, and we just took a shortcut." Lisa remembered the early days of the project, when they first realized what they had discovered. Traditional dimensional travel required enormous amounts of energy because it tried to force matter through dimensional barriers. But consciousness already existed across dimensions. It just needed the right interface to access them. "Captain's coming down," Marcus announced, "and he's bringing the final crew roster." Lisa straightened her lab coat as the elevator doors opened. James Walker stepped out, holding a tablet and wearing his usual serious expression. But she could see the excitement in his eyes. "Dr. Reed," he nodded to her. "Final crew selections have been approved. You'll be chief scientist, of course. Tom Harris as navigator, Marcus Stone as engineer, and I'll be taking the captain's chair." "The dream team," Tom grinned. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow at 600, Walker replied. "The council doesn't know we're ready. They're expecting us to take months preparing for the demonstration. Instead, we'll show up next week and give them the shock of their lives." Lisa turned back to look at the Transcendence. The ship's form continued its endless folding, each curve and angle suggesting geometries that shouldn't be possible in normal space. Tomorrow, they would take this impossible ship out among the stars. Tomorrow, they would show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their determination. It was their ability to think differently, to find paths that no one else had even thought to look for. And maybe, just maybe, to change the very nature of space travel forever. Get some rest, Walker told them. Tomorrow, we make history. The launch chamber beneath Europa's ice was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. Captain Walker sat in the command chair of the HS Transcendence, his hands resting lightly on the neural interface panels. Around him, the bridge seemed to shift and change, parts of it existing in dimensions he couldn't quite see. All systems check complete, Marcus called from the engineering station. Dimensional core is running at minimum power. We're ready to go, Captain. Tom Harris' fingers danced across his navigation console, which projected holographic displays that curved in impossible ways. Exit route plotted through the ice chamber. We'll need 30 seconds of traditional thrust before switching to dimensional drive. Dr. Reed. Walker turned to look at his chief scientist. How's our consciousness interface holding up? Lisa checked her readings carefully. Perfect synchronization across all crew members. The ship recognizes us as part of itself. We're ready to think in 7 dimensions, Captain. Walker nodded and opened the ship-wide communication channel. Launch control. This is Transcendence. We are go for launch. Confirmed, Transcendence, came the response from the control room. Chamber depressurization beginning now. Opening ice gates in 3, 2, 1. Above them, the massive doors in Europa's icy crust began to slide apart. Chunks of ice floated in the zero-gravity environment, sparkling in the lights from the launch chamber. The Transcendence lifted smoothly from its docking cradle, its form continuing to fold and unfold in ways that made the observation crew's eyes water. Traditional engines engaged, Marcus reported, moving at 1/4 power. The ship rose steadily through the opening, its hull briefly catching the light of distant Jupiter as it emerged from Europa's icy surface. Several Earth observation satellites tracked their progress, but to any alien watching, it would appear to be nothing more than a routine human vessel launch. We've cleared the safety zone, Tom announced. Ready for dimensional drive activation on your mark. Walker took a deep breath. They had tested the drive in controlled conditions, but this would be their first real space activation. Dr. Reed, begin consciousness synchronization. Marcus, power up the dimensional core. Tom, plot our course to the demonstration coordinates. The ship's interior changed subtly as the consciousness interface activated fully. Colors seemed to gain new properties and shapes began to suggest directions that shouldn't exist. The crew felt their awareness expanding, guided by months of training, and the ship's carefully designed systems. Alien vessel detected, Tom suddenly called out. It's big, reading energy signatures consistent with architect technology. They must have been watching Europa. Walker smiled slightly. Right on schedule. They couldn't resist monitoring us. Are they in weapons range? They're charging their 6th-dimensional disruption cannons, Marcus reported calmly. Looks like they want to teach us a lesson. Should we evade? Tom asked, his hands hovering over the controls. No, Walker replied. Let them take their shot. Dr. Reed, is the dimensional core ready? Lisa's fingers moved across her console, adjusting values that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Core at full power, Captain. We can jump to 7th-dimensional space at your command. The architect vessel grew larger on their main display, its crystalline structure glowing with gathered energy. A message flashed across their communication system. Human vessel, power down your engines, and prepare to be escorted back to Europa. Your primitive attempt at dimensional travel ends here. Walker's smile grew wider. Send no response. Prepare for dimensional jump on my mark. He looked around at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. The galaxy's about to learn that humanity doesn't play by their rules. We make our own. The architect ship fired, its 6th-dimensional weapon designed to tear apart the very fabric of space-time around their target. At that exact moment, Walker gave the command. Activate 7th-dimensional drive. Now, the universe changed. The Transcendence didn't just move through space. It stepped outside of conventional reality itself. The architect weapon passed harmlessly through the space where they had been, where they still were, and where they would be, all at once. The laughter of the Galactic Council seemed very far away now. The real show was about to begin. Reality shifted. The crew of the HSS Transcendence felt their consciousness expand as the seventh dimensional drive activated fully for the first time in open space. Colors that had no names flowed across the bridge, and directions that shouldn't exist became as natural as up and down. Status report, Walker commanded, his voice seeming to echo across multiple dimensions. Marcus checked his readings, his eyes adapting to see information that existed in several states at once. Dimensional core stable at 85% power. The ship is everywhere and nowhere, Captain. Just like in the simulations, but stronger. Lisa's hands moved across her console, monitoring the crew's mental states. Consciousness interface is holding steady. Our minds are successfully processing seven-dimensional space. She paused, amazed. We're actually doing it. We're seeing reality as it truly exists. Through the ship's advanced sensors, they could observe the architect vessel frozen in normal space. Its sixth-dimensional weapon discharge hung motionless, a beautiful but useless display of power against a target that had transcended its reach. It's incredible, Tom breathed, watching the navigation displays. I can see all possible paths at once. Every route the ship could take, every place it could be. It's like playing a million chess games simultaneously. The architect ship's communications came through, distorted by their dimensional shift. Human vessel, you have. Impossible. Readings indicate. Prepare to be. They can barely track us, Marcus reported with a grin. Their sensors weren't designed to handle this level of dimensional existence. To them, we must look like a gap in reality itself. Walker stood from his command chair, walking to the main viewport. The view outside defied traditional description. Stars existed not as points of light, but as complete entities across time and space. He could see their past, present, and countless possible futures all at once. Dr. Reed, he called, show me what we look like to them. Lisa adjusted the sensors, creating a three-dimensional projection of their ship from the architect's perspective. The Transcendence appeared as a shifting void in space, its edges constantly folding and unfolding through dimensions the architects couldn't comprehend. Their weapons can't touch us, Marcus added. We exist in too many states simultaneously. It's like trying to shoot a shadow with a bullet. Suddenly, alarms flashed across multiple dimensional planes. The architects are attempting a sixth-dimensional fold, Tom mourned. They're trying to trap us in a space-time pocket. Walker remained calm. Let them try. Dr. Reed, activate the dimensional harmonics. Show them what true dimensional mastery looks like. Lisa's fingers danced across her console. The Transcendence's dimensional field pulsed, spreading outward through all seven dimensions. The architect's space-time pocket shattered before it could even form, its energy dispersing harmlessly across multiple realities. They're charging their main weapon arrays, Marcus reported. Looks like they're getting desperate. All this power, Tom mused, watching the architect ship's futile preparations, and we're not even using it to fight back. We've made their greatest weapons meaningless without firing a single shot. Walker nodded. Because this isn't about fighting. This is about showing them that their understanding of reality is incomplete. He turned to his crew. Prepare for Phase 2. Let's show them something that will really make their crystalline structures rattle. The Transcendence moved through seven-dimensional space, its movement more like a thought than physical travel. The crew felt their expanded consciousness working in perfect harmony with the ship's systems, seeing and understanding reality in ways that humans had only dreamed of before. Ready for dimensional demonstration sequence, Lisa announced. The consciousness interface is primed for full spectrum display. Walker returned to his command chair, placing his hands on the neural interface panels. The architects spent 50,000 years mastering the sixth dimension, never realizing they were taking the long way around. Time to show them what they missed. The ship's dimensional core pulsed with power as they prepared for their next move. In normal space, the Architect vessel hung motionless, its weapons and defenses useless against an enemy that had transcended their understanding of reality itself. The real demonstration was about to begin, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Walker watched calmly as another volley of sixth-dimensional weapons passed harmlessly through the transcendence. The Architect ship's crystalline structure pulsed with frustrated energy as each attack proved useless against the human vessel. "They're scanning us with everything they've got," Marcus reported from his station. "Their sensors are going crazy trying to figure out what we are." He chuckled. "They still think we're using some kind of advanced shielding." Lisa looked up from her console, her eyes shining with the reflected light of multiple dimensions. "Captain, the consciousness interface is showing something interesting. Their crew, they're afraid. Not of our weapons, but of what we represent. Everything they thought they knew about dimensional physics is being proven wrong." "Good," Walker nodded. "Time to show them why. Tom, move us into position for the revelation sequence." The transcendence shifted, not through normal space, but through layers of reality itself. To the Architect's sensors, it must have looked like their ship was folding through impossible angles, existing in multiple places at once. "Running final checks on the dimensional projection system," Lisa announced. "We're ready to show them the truth about seventh-dimensional space." Walker stood, his voice calm but carrying authority across all dimensional planes. "Open a communication channel to the Architect vessel. Let's do this properly." The main screen flickered to life, showing the crystalline form of the Architect ship's commander. Its faceted surface rippled with patterns of confusion and anger. "Impossible vessel," the Architect commander's voice resonated through multiple dimensions. "Your defiance of natural law ends now. Surrender your dimensional technology or be destroyed." Walker smiled. "Natural law. You've spent 50,000 years studying only a fraction of reality. You never asked the most important question. Why does consciousness affect quantum states? Why can minds influence reality at its most fundamental level?" The Architect commander's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. "These are primitive philosophical questions. They have no bearing on dimensional physics." "Wrong," Lisa spoke up, her fingers dancing across her console. "They have everything to do with it. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality. It exists across all dimensions simultaneously. We didn't build a better engine or a stronger power source. We built an interface that lets us access what was already there." The bridge of the transcendence began to glow with inner light as Lisa activated the dimensional projection system. Around them, reality seemed to unfold like a flower blooming in 7 dimensions at once. "You tried to brute force your way through dimensions," Marcus added, monitoring the power flows. "Like trying to break down a door when you already had the key in your pocket. Human consciousness was the key. We just had to learn how to use it." The Architect commander's form crackled with energy patterns that suggested disbelief. "Impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical if you tried to force matter through dimensional barriers," Tom finished for him. "But we don't force anything. We think our way through. The ship is an extension of human consciousness, existing everywhere and nowhere at once." Walker raised his hand, and the transcendence's dimensional field expanded slightly. The Architect ship's sensors overloaded instantly, their sixth-dimensional technology unable to process what they were seeing. "Your weapons can't hurt us," Walker explained calmly, "because we're not just traveling through higher dimensions. We exist outside the conventional dimensional framework entirely. We can observe and interact with all lower dimensions simultaneously while remaining untouchable." Through their ship's sensors, the crew could see the Architect vessel's crew struggling to understand what they were witnessing. Their entire understanding of physics, built up over 50 millennia, was being completely rewritten in a single moment. "This is just the beginning," Walker continued. "We're not here to fight or to prove our superiority. We're here to show you a new way of understanding reality itself. The question is, are you ready to learn? The Architect Commander's crystalline form had stopped flickering, frozen in what appeared to be shock. In the silence that followed, the crew of the Transcendence could feel the universe holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. The age of human dimensional supremacy had begun, not with a bang, but with a revelation that would change everything. The silence stretched across multiple dimensions as the Architect vessel hung motionless in space. Their weapons had powered down, not in surrender, but in the simple recognition that they were useless. Captain Walker watched the crystalline commander's form, shifting with patterns of confusion and fear. "Dr. Reed," Walker spoke quietly, "begin the demonstration sequence." Lisa's hands moved across her console with practiced precision. "Creating a controlled dimensional pocket now, Captain. This will let them experience seventh-dimensional space without the risk of getting lost in it." The Transcendence's dimensional core hummed with power, but not the raw brute force the architects used. This was more like a gentle ripple in the fabric of reality, a careful fold in the universe itself. "Dimensional bubble forming," Marcus reported, watching his engineering displays. "It's stable and contained. Ready to extend it around the Architect vessel on your mark." Walker opened the communication channel again. "Architect vessel, we're about to show you something no one in the galaxy has ever seen before. Don't be alarmed. This is not an attack." The crystalline commander's voice crackled back, trying to maintain its dignity. We are not afraid of human tricks." "Not tricks," Tom said from his station, smiling. "We're about to give you a gift, a glimpse of what we see." Walker nodded to Lisa. "Begin the ascension sequence." The space around the Architect's ship began to shimmer, not with energy or light, but with possibility. Their sensors would show them that reality itself was gently folding around them, creating a protective bubble of higher dimensional space. "Dimensional pocket stable," Marcus called out, "beginning gradual elevation through dimensional planes." Through their ship's advanced sensors, the crew of the Transcendence could see what was happening to the Architect vessel. Layer by layer, they were being lifted into higher dimensions, their consciousness carefully guided by the human ship's interface. First came the fifth dimension, something the architects knew well. Then the sixth, their current masterpiece of technological achievement. But then, something new, something more. "They're entering seventh-dimensional space now," Lisa reported, carefully monitoring the process. "Their consciousness patterns are adapting, just like ours did during training." The Architect Commander's crystalline form blazed with patterns of pure wonder. This is, we can see everything." Walker finished for him. "Every possibility, every path, every moment of time all at once. This is what reality truly looks like when you step outside the conventional framework." Through the communication channel, they could hear the amazed exclamations of the Architect crew. Their crystalline forms were resonating with new frequencies as they experienced, for the first time, what humanity had discovered by accident. "Their ship's sensors are recording everything," Marcus noted with a grin. "Let them. The more data they collect, the better they'll understand that this isn't some trick or illusion." Tom watched his navigation displays with pride. "Look at how they're moving in the dimensional pocket, like children taking their first steps. We were just like that during our early trials." For exactly 1 minute, Walker allowed the architects to experience the true nature of reality. He let them see how their mighty sixth-dimensional technology was just a crude stepping stone to something far greater. Not through power or force, but through understanding and consciousness itself. "Beginning descent sequence," Lisa announced, her fingers dancing across the controls, bringing them back gently. The dimensional pocket slowly collapsed, lowering the Architect vessel back into normal space. Their crystalline structure still sparked with residual energy from the experience, their patterns showing a mix of awe, confusion, and something new, respect. What was that?" The Architect Commander's voice was different now, humbled. Walker smiled. "That was the truth we tried to tell your council. Humanity didn't just build a better ship or a stronger engine. We found a different way to look at reality itself. And now that you've seen it, the Council, the commander interrupted, its voice urgent. They must know. The galaxy must know. Everything we thought we knew about dimensional physics was just the beginning. Walker finished. And if you're willing to learn, we're willing to teach. The Architect vessel's response was immediate. We are willing. The crew of the Transcendence shared knowing looks. Phase 2 of their plan had worked perfectly. Soon, the entire galaxy would understand that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't conquering the seventh dimension. It was finding a way to share it with others. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. No laughter echoed off its walls this time. Captain Walker stood on the central platform again. But now he wasn't alone. Dr. Lisa Reed, Tom Harris, and Marcus Stone stood with him, their black uniforms adorned with new insignias showing 7 interlocking dimensions. The Chief Architect's crystalline form glowed with subdued colors, all traces of previous arrogance gone. Behind him, the Architect Commander who had witnessed the Transcendence's demonstration sat in a place of honor, its surface still occasionally flickering with remembered wonder. We have reviewed the evidence provided by the Architect observation vessel. The Chief Architect's voice was solemn. We have confirmed their sensor readings, impossible as they seem. And we have. He paused, his crystalline structure shifting slightly. We have reviewed our own assumptions about the nature of reality. Walker nodded but remained silent. The crew of the Transcendence had learned that sometimes the most powerful thing to do was to let others reach their own conclusions. Humanity, the Chief Architect continued, has not just mastered the seventh dimension. They have discovered a fundamentally new way of understanding existence itself. Their achievement makes our 50,000 years of dimensional research look like a child's first steps. Murmurs ran through the assembled representatives. Some were energy beings, others were crystalline like the Architects, and still others were organic life forms of countless varieties. All of them had watched the recorded evidence from the Architect vessel. All of them had seen what human technology could do. The question before this council is no longer whether to accept Earth as an equal. The Chief Architect spoke. The question is, what happens next? Walker stepped forward. If I may address the council. Please do, Captain Walker. We are quite interested in what humanity has to say now. Walker smiled. When we first discovered this technology, we had a choice to make. We could have used it to dominate, to take whatever we wanted. After all, how do you fight a ship that exists outside normal dimensions? How do you stop someone who can step sideways through reality itself? He paused, looking around the chamber. But that's not who we are. That's not what humanity wants to be. We chose a different path. Lisa stepped forward to join him. The seventh dimensional technology isn't just about travel or power. It's about understanding. Through it, we can tap into unlimited clean energy by drawing power from dimensional boundaries. We can heal damaged sections of space-time. We can solve problems that seemed impossible before. And we want to share it, Marcus added, his voice carrying across the chamber. Not the brute force method of dimensional travel you've been using, but the true understanding of how consciousness interacts with reality. Tom nodded. It won't be easy. Learning to think in 7 dimensions took us months of training, but we've developed teaching methods, ways to help other species adapt their consciousness gradually and safely. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. The Chief Architect raised his crystalline hand for silence, but this time it took longer for the chamber to quiet down. You offer to share this technology freely? He asked, disbelief coloring his tone. After we mocked you. After we dismissed you as primitives. Walker's smile widened. That's exactly why we're sharing it. Because the galaxy needs to understand that real advancement doesn't come from power or age or tradition. It comes from being willing to think differently, to question everything, and to admit when you've been wrong. The Chief Architect was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his crystalline form began to pulse with a new pattern, one that the crew recognized as joy. In 50,000 years, he said, no species has ever surprised us like this. No discovery has ever made us question our understanding so completely. He turned to address the full council. I move that we not only accept Earth as a full member of the Galactic Council, but that we establish an immediate exchange program for this new technology. The vote was unanimous. As celebrations broke out across the chamber, Walker looked at his crew. They had done it. They had changed the galaxy not through force or fear, but through understanding and wisdom. The laughter had stopped, replaced by something far better, hope for a future where the barriers between dimensions and between species would finally fade away.